Hi and hello, and this is Mark Delacroix, product lead for LoreLink, talking to you once again. We're here on this Tuesday, back in the driver's seat again. We've been a little on and off basically these couple of weeks. We've had some really cool stuff. If you missed the fact that on Friday, Tony led us through Star Trek Adventures, do go check that out on our YouTube channel. We have the YouTube archives up there, and you can catch a great adventure where we saved some people, and we didn't blow up a planet. We didn't murder any diplomats or anything like that. We probably stretched the Prime Directive, but hey, it was all for a good cause, and it's not a good Star Trek episode unless you're stretching the Prime Directive. Eh, I mean, you're responsible for 2 out of the 3. The Prime Directive was mostly me as the basically as the person in charge of the ship. I'd say commander, except we had a commander, and I was the Commodore, not the commander. In any case, that was last week, and so basically we are back here again this week to talk about languages in TTRPGs. In particular, basically we are here to talk about. Let me actually show myself as opposed to just a starting soon screen. I can actually bring it in. Boom, there's that. Basically, you can see we are here to talk about Toranag ise Tobrim, and I basically pronounced that hopefully close enough. And I will let the author who is here introduce herself. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask Tony if he knows how to switch over the font type, because I need to change the font color. But go ahead and introduce yourself.
Que Author Kristen Gielecki perku peraf erdamisil. Actually, my name's Kristen, and I've written a book for
If you want to know if you want to understand us during this conversation, the links will be in the chat to go pick up the book, and then you'll be able to translate that.
That's right. Well, that was pretty easy. I said, "Hi, my name's Kristen, and I wrote a book for game players."
Haha, awesome.
But I'm very happy to be here. I was quite tickled to be invited, and I hope we have a good time talking about it, because honestly, it's kind of a difficult idea to have a conversation with the average person about. So it's nice to be where people get the idea.
Oh, certainly. Basically, that's the great thing with tabletop role playing games, is the fact that there is so much space in there for every kind of conceivable topic. You could run anything from you could have a football TTRPG, and I've seen those basically where you run basically football or baseball or managing things like that, to high fantasy and castles and wizards. It worked awesome, Tony. Thank you so much. Basically, or you can have something set in the far future, or basically the distant past, or strange wars, or other stuff. And basically, there is all sorts of space for all sorts of interesting things that you can pull out, you can look at, and you can examine in the TTRPG space. And languages are definitely one of those things which are it's very much a part of a lot of TTRPGs, but a lot of it gets kind of glossed over, and so it's really exciting to basically be like, hey, let's take a deeper look at this thing we tend to overlook. Let's take a look at that. So basically kind of start about that. We'll go ahead and talk about basically go ahead. What's your background with TTRPGs and with languages, and what made you combine those two things together?
I started playing. I was aware of D&D since it came out, because I was a kid and it sounded like a really cool idea. But then in high school, I started looking into it, but nobody wanted a girl in their group. And then by the time I was 21, everybody wanted me in their group. So I started actively playing in 2nd edition, and I went to the library. My library was cool and had Dragon Magazine. So I went and I took out every issue, back issue they had, and read up, so I could catch up on what was going on. And there was one article that mentioned how bad it was that when you run out of words for things and you wind up with I distinctly remember it was, "You're at the Temple of Floor Wax in Shine Bright City," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that is pretty bad." So that idea was sort of rattling around in my head for a long time, and then I was trying to show my brother how to play, and he was a very math sort of guy, draftsman, not overly fantasy oriented. And he's like, okay, so we're in a bar and he's got this elf. And the bartender, he completely failed his charisma roll, and the bartender hated him. So as the conversation went on, the bartender was getting ruder and ruder to him. And get your beep ready. My brother looked at me and said, "How can I tell this guy to go fuck himself, an elf?" I don't know, but I'll work on that and get back to you. So from the craziest conversation, the two ideas crashed into each other. I said, you know what? Maybe this is something that people could use. I didn't think it would ever turn into this. It's got like over 2,500 words and grammar rules and things like that. And I'm working on a new edition. So you better buy this one, folks. It's going to be the collector's edition. It's got a first edition on it.
Uh-huh.
I didn't warn you. And anyway, the second edition will probably have more phrases in it, like a phrase book, and as well as an English to Elvish section. I'll have the reverse, the Elvish to English. And mostly it was because we'd be playing and, what does this town do? Oh, they sell shoes. Okay, it's Shoe Town. Wouldn't you rather go to Christessa? I would rather go to Christessa than Shoe Town. So, but it makes it sound better. And, how many swords can you have that are called Stab Face? You can use this for spells, you can use it for place names, you can use it for weapon names. If you read, like, the First Law books, maybe it's your battle name. Lingilef, the Cold Blue Death. These are the things that it just makes it more real. And I've been in games where it's like, well, what's the city? It's the ancient elf city of Lupadupaloo. And they're like, okay. And then the next thing is, this city Boopadoopadoo? No, this one's, Morgashia. There's no logic behind it. So I tried to look at languages and figure, because I don't have any degrees in it. I've always liked reading. I like how words go together. I like studying the history of how things changed. So I just broke everything down into the basics. And if you're going to have a D&D book, you need a word for knight. And if you're going to have the word for knight, you're going to need the word for horse. Because virtually all of the words for knight in different languages devolve from the word horse. In German, it's Ritter, which is rider. In French, it's chevalier, which comes from cheval, a horse. So that's what I started with. The first word was Elo, horse. And that brought me to Elok and Eloch, male and female knight. So I do have a section on my nouns are gendered, which is optional. You don't have to use it. You can use either the male form or the female form, or neither. Pick the one you like best and run with it. It just made more sense. But not objects. It's people, things people can be, things people can do. So you can, a carpenter would have a male and female form, but a table wouldn't. Because that's just aggravating. Table, she is broken. The table's broken. So that's basically where it came from. Just a question that grew into a project. And the more I worked at it, the people in my group would say, "Oh, what we need? Oh, okay. Well, do you have a word for jail?" Well, let me think. And I would go through and try to come up with something, and then scribble it down later. And then I was 150 words in when my mom looked at it and said, "You don't have dragon." No, how is that possible? And she would, that was one. Thanks, Mom. But really,
that's great.
So that was one of those moments. Like, and even now, when I was writing up the grammar slides that we're going to be looking at, I see things that were like, oh, I missed that. So, That's the thing about, because how can somebody proofread it? I mean, I can look at it and say, I spelled something wrong, and everybody goes, how do you even know? It's because I made it up. I know it's spelled. So what's really
I've made a
I go,
reference for this.
when I find one of the English words are typoed, I'm like, oh, great.
Sorry, I'm struggling. English, this is my first language here.
Yeah,
Blame,
I'm working on it.
blame it on the unreliable narrator of the book, of the glossary.
And there are irregular verbs, and there are words that we just don't understand how they got that way. Keeps it more realistic for some things to not make sense. Oh, and if you're wondering, the title is Elvish Language for Humans.
Ah,
So,
that makes sense. That makes
nice
sense.
and simple.
There you go. So
Somebody told me
basically, good.
my triple dragon is a tattoo, and I'm like, no. It would be awesome, but I'm just not a I'm completely stock paint. Original. So that makes me an individualist in our new world.
Yeah.
So have you had a chance to look at it? I mean, is there anything that strikes you that like sucks?
No, nothing in Basically, I can slip over to. I've got the diagram here. But I was amused by the dedication, just because of the fact that is 100% the feeling. You're like, basically, I was going to do this, get this done at some point, and it's finally done.
Yep. Because there was a big gap in the middle when D&D died like disco. And it was like, well, there's really not much point in finishing it because nobody plays D&D anymore. And then the pandemic hit. And the most amazing thing happened. People started playing D&D, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. maybe I better dig this out and take a look. And that's the last word I changed. It was a perfectly good word when I started, and I'm going through and I'm scrolling through. I'm like, okay, all the columns are right. That's right. That's spelled right. Wait a minute. Scroll back. Ooh, spices was COVID. COVID. And I'm like, that needs to change. So yeah, spice was my unfortunate fortune telling. I'm glad I caught that. That would have been embarrassing. My book released in 2020. Here's a word. We just used COVID for a word. Isn't that nice?
Basically, Mark Parrish commenting, basically, he'd love to be able to hear from their longbow, swift defeat to my enemies, and be able to answer back in Elvish, swift defeat to those who have wronged me.
Yes, exactly.
It's those moments that can add a lot to a game. In terms of...
I've written prayers for my cleric, which is an Elvish cleric of St. Cuthbert, and we used to play through Yahoo groups in email. So you could spend 8 paragraphs talking about picking a lock. So I'd be over there. It's like, oh, time for a prayer. Let's unpack the elf. Yeah. At Christmas I wrote Silent Night in Elf. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Basically,
unfortunately,
good.
I could have recorded it.
Haha. Well,
Missed opportunity.
You could use that. Basically, a later edition of the book could have have an audio CD that comes with it that has songs and other things.
Domain.
Yeah.
I was going to write like a grammar rock sort of song, like Marnie, Manota, when you're swimming in the water. But I ran out of time, and I couldn't do the animation, but it would have been really funny.
Haha. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Basically the schoolhouse rock levels of of Elvish, basically.
Little marking pen drawings.
Hey. Basically.
If I ever finish one, I'll send it to you first for the world premiere. How's that?
Oh, that sounds great. I'd love that. That'd be awesome. So basically, you've got a calendar here, and that's always interesting because it's basically the thing with languages, and you were talking about it. You started talking about it, basically how language grows and language builds from things, and obviously, when you're building something like you're going to get into culture because culture is going to start becoming part of it as you go through it. Dates are obviously part of that. Like when we're looking at them in basically from Basically, from our English perspective, January, February, March. Basically, you have like August and September, which basically you have these random rulers who have popped in and things like that, and random bits of culture that have kind of all congregated together and flowed out into basically informed our names of our months. Did you find something similar happening when you were creating basically whether it was even calendar or other things in terms of basically you're having to invent the culture behind this to help to start building the language along with it?
Yes, I did, and you're right. It shows a lot in the calendar because I did like the old Greyhawk idea of like the festival periods
Mm,
to even out the year. So I went through and like, well, you live basically with nature. A lot of people forget that. Well, the elves and their spiral, they're forest creatures. So I think even though, for the most part, unless you're like wood elves, even the most civilized elf is going to have words, phrases that are forest and nature based. So that's why we have things like what would what would January be to an elf living in the forest? It would be the time of fur and fire.
mm,
So
mm,
that's what I went
mhm,
through, and I called it the February. If you live in Michigan, you know that's a pretty bleak time. So
mhm,
that would be the hunger hunt. And they would divide those up by the seasonal facts of what they had to deal with. So, like what we would call Easter would be tree birth,
mm,
the beginning of a new year and the
mhm.
beginning of growth. So that's where I really tried to focus on it. And there are some things like in the phrase area, like it's Greek to me. It's translates to uh, is that an orcish joke? So, but you know, just what would something scornful? Because I found out that in Polish, it's Greek to me actually would be I'm listening to a sermon in Turkish.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. No in Japan, the title of the movie translates to 007 is the killing number. I couldn't, if I spent the rest of my life, I couldn't think of something that cool. I mean, my God, 007 is a killing number. That's neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so that's the sort of thing I was going for.
Hmm.
And as I add phrases, um, you know, like that's what I'm aiming for.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
would an elf uh, tell somebody their flies unzipped?
Hmm.
Watch your antlers. Yeah, but things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's I try really hard to work with that, and there are some in jokes in there, like the fact that my name starts with a K. So I went through and took the K out. There is no K in my dictionary for elf words, just to be contrary. But then I made the
That's
word
great.
for I is pronounced K, so it's there every time you say I. the
Ha.
K.
Nice. Nice. That's the
uh,
fun part of basically being able to, when you're crafting something like that, there's always a little bit of you that slips in there and it's part of it, and that's what makes it unique and interesting. Basically, that's the great part
the
about
little
being
thing to
creative.
nudge somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be singing my praises every time you say the word I.
Haha. Perfect.
So yeah, that's what's going on there. Numbers, that is an early example of combination
Mm.
because really English, as they always say, is like three languages in a trench coat. So we borrow from everybody. But for the most generally it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 1, 10, 2, 10, 3, 10, 4, which even in our thing is 13. The teen is a contraction of a derivative of 10.
Mm.
So all the way up to 19 and 21, 22. So that's what I tried to go for with that. Mostly the hard part was coming up with new suffixes. And I saved the best ones for the verb tenses, which is fairly complex. But really, it's just additive. If
Hmm.
you look at there is a pattern, and once you know it, I think it's fairly easy to use. And you don't even have to use it if you just want to say um, a verb and add ed on the end because that makes sense to you. This is just a guideline. It's not a
Hmm. Hmm.
textbook. So pick the parts you like, leave out the parts you don't. Always remember that if I see somebody using it in a published work, I'm going to sue the daylights out of you. Don't do that anymore. Make your own damn language.
Yeah. Make your own.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to talk about the grammar yet.
Yeah, let's go. Basically, I was going to transition into that. Basically, we'll go ahead and you provided some great slides, so you want to talk us through the basics of how this language is put together.
Yeah, I was really hesitant to make these because nobody wants to go to 8th grade English class. We're here to have fun. But just to show you that I did put some thought into this.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the basic form of the verb would end in IR. So in this case, it's to swim or just swim would be marnir. And we have the present participle, which is when we take the verb and make it into a word by itself. So swim is a verb. Swimming is an activity that you do. So that would be marniga, or again, like here, swimming is healthy. Marniga is alterati. So that's where that comes in. And it's just the base form of the verb, marn, and we change it to marniga. Now, remember these two. This is important. So what we do is we take the tenses of the verb for I, you, he, she, or it, they, we, and build from there. So if we go to the next one, flip my own page here. First person would be marnis, I swim. Okay? If you're swimming, it's marnair. Then we go to marneth. So those endings, those suffixes are going to be repeated. Then we go to the plural, marnech, marnos, marnet. This is where it gets fun. You swam. So we have marnair, which is you swim, but then we add it onto the end, which moves it into the past tense. Marneret.
Okay.
So it's you swam. And that goes on through all of them. Marneth, marnethit. So the first person is always the basic one. That's where the main change, you're going to have the introduction of the new suffix. So marnis, marnir, marnet. If we go into the plural, we have marnekit, marnoset, and marnetet, which is kind of hard to say, but there are words in our language that are hard to say. Future tense, we go to marnas, mas. So it's marmas, marnirmas. And it just builds everything out. Each time we go through, marnethmas. Future tense, marnechmas. That's a fun one to say. What are you doing, marnechmas? Go swim. It just sounds heroic, doesn't it? Perfect tense. This is where it gets a little weird, because this comes before the additional end. So we have marnku, marnkueret. It actually, because there are irregular verbs, and in Elf, the perfect tense is irregular. Instead of coming at the end, makes it a little more realistic, because there's always a word somewhere that messes you up. Swim, swam, swum. To an elf, that would sound dumb. I'm sorry, I'm writing the song in my head as I go. And we go through into the continuous tense. This is where even I started getting a headache. Like, where's that old grammar book of mine? Marnis, I am. Marnis siga. So now I am swimming, they were swimming. Marnentiga.
Okay.
So the words get kind of long, so that's kind of German, how it comes out. But I think it gives it its own flavor. Emphatic marnarag. Marnasisi. That was fun. Marnasisi. Plurals. Just for the heck of it, I decided, and the fact that I made a mistake, and some words had N and some had ill, but I noticed that for the most part, I was giving ill to inanimate objects. So we have cat would be kibi, which is actually after my cat CB that I had at the time. So we have kibi, kibil. If it ends in a consonant, it becomes ril. So my paper fell down. I got my own cheat sheet here. And inanimate objects get N. So rocks would be asked N. A table would be table N. Whatever table is, I can't remember. There's 2,500 words. People give me a break. I know when it's wrong though. So I think that's a little more realistic. And as you see in Kibi, what if, because we've borrowed words from other languages like beef. We got it from the French word biche. So what if humans in D&D got kitty from the elven word for cat, kibi? It was close enough. That sounded, what is that? Kitty. Oh, kitty. Kitty, oh, it's kitty. Okay, whatever. So that's one of the things. And you'll also notice I've got the tented eye. Full disclosure, I put those in completely randomly where I thought they would look awesome. They named them. So if somebody wants to tell me what these words actually sound like with the marks on there, more power to you. But yeah, they're there just to spice things up. And if you don't want to dig through the alt keys to find out, I mean, I know that alt 0255 is the Y with 2 dots over it.
Ah, the Unicode. Cool. Yep.
Don't bother. You have my permission to not do it, but I think it looks jazzy as hell. So
the elves are used to humans being lazy. It's okay.
Again, we have the abstract. Going on to abstract. To free somebody would be cholier, but the idea of freedom itself. So you can call it an abstract or an intangible. It's choi, eris, etiradai. So if you see AI on the end, it could be anything from freedom to wonder. You're going to see that a lot. If you can't really hold it or define it, that's where the AI starts coming in, and not the bad AI, the good AI. So don't do the AI.
Don't do the AI.
On to the gendered nouns that we discussed earlier, completely optional. So it would be Kazdirik. So the male is IC, and female is ICI or Ich. So it would be Kazdirik or Kazdirich. I like it. I think it helps define a little bit when you're reading something that isn't your first language. Any cute clue you can give to your readers or your players, that if they see that, they know you're talking about a woman. So I think it can be helpful in a gaming sense, because you can leave clues that way. Like you find a mystic inscription and somebody who's paying attention says, wait a minute, that doesn't say the prince who was promised. Well, that could be a woman too. We've all read that book. So,
Yep.
So yeah, that can be a pointer that you can use for flight. And I really like it. And then we have the question of nouns that don't match in our language, like knight. Knight is pretty much a male word in the English language, but doesn't have to be. No, we've got plenty of female knights in D&D, or we should, and if we don't, why don't you? Shame on you. Get with the times. It's the 21st century. So in this case, we have Eloric or Elorich. If the knight, the person holding the title, is a female or woman, however you want to define it, or don't use it at all, as I said. So what do we do with whoever they marry? Okay, well, we have the dame, which in our language is somebody who's married or to a knight or is a knight herself. But there ain't nothing like a dame according to the song, but dame really kind of has a negative. Some dumb dame. I don't know, I just never liked the word. It's right like one step above broad in my book. So, like, let's fix that. I mean, nobody ever says broad in a positive way. So that would be Eloi in Elos. So it would be, Eloric Enlil and his wife, Eloi Mariana. Or we have Eloric Lara and Elos, what's her brother's name? Elos Branagh. There we go. So it's just a little flavor to it, so you can tell who's who. And there are titles all the way through this. All of the European titles, Marquess, Marquise, Baron, Baroness, everything in there. The other thing I wanted to address, I don't know if you noticed when you were looking through it, is that the order of the book is a little weird, because I asked a lot of people on how I should sort it. Should I do it strictly alphabetically, or should I do it categorically? So what I did is, if you're looking for sword, you should go to W, because it's going to be under weapon. So all of the weapons are in one place.
Okay.
Like player classes. Just go to player classes. All the names of the classes are there. It makes it a little easier. I really sweated over that decision, but I thought paging through every page trying to find, well, what's a bow? What's a crossbow? Oh, God.
Yep.
And just so everybody knows, we're looking at it here.
Yeah.
I'll let you see my copy.
Ooh.
That's a cool thing.
Ooh. Gotta keep it neat.
That's right, it's safe. I've got the hardcover and the softcover.
Nice.
So of course I have both.
Of course.
If you want a special order one, by the way, I can. These can't be ordered through the link, but if you talk to me, I can get it set up for you. Is they can have special dedication pages.
Oh, nice.
So this one, everybody that was in my email gaming group got one.
Oh,
The
nice.
exclusive Blackwater Black Dragon Clan edition with their name and their name on it. So,
Awesome.
So
It's
it's not a very big book, but it's jam-packed.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything in there that you saw that we haven't addressed that you need more info on?
Basically, one thing I would ask about is, in terms of, obviously, when you're developing a language and things like that, a tone starts to develop in terms of basically words start to sound a certain kind of way. Basically, I've noticed there's a lot of basically A's and I's seem to be the most prominent. There are basically E's and O's. Basically, maybe even just the ones we're looking at. Basically, we're looking through it. Basically, it feels like there's a certain kind of, basically, were you developing in a certain kind of way to give the language a certain kind of, I basically don't want to say mouthfeel because that sounds terrible, but basically a certain kind of feel, a certain kind of sound that when you're pronouncing it, that basically it felt, basically you wanted it to feel this sort of way.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how it turned out that way, but when I was going through and I just noticed there would be some variance in spelling, and then I had to go through and get rid of all the K's.
You made that decision. They're like, oh wait, that's awesome.
So that was kind of an undertaking, but yeah, it just seems that there are more flowing sounds and they have more variation. Like if you put EU together, it's ew. That's not very that's not very attractive. But OA is wow. So it gives you a little more variation in the sounds and a more uniformity of look. Some of them had to go. Like U's I don't use often unless it's they're there for in some words to differentiate things, or in tenses like Marniku, I will have swum. So yes, there was a conscious decision to go through and normalize, and really, isn't it? It's useful, but I have the I sound letter generally covering that sound, so I duplicate. I was just trying to strip it down and make it a little more, a little less unwieldy. Not more, anything less. I was trying to trim it down a bit.
Yeah, languages are always a fascinating thing because basically you start to study a language and basically you start with all of the this is how it should be and things like that, and then you start hitting those exceptions really quickly. Basically irregulars, and even in languages which try to be as straightforward or basically as normal as you can be, you'll actually listen to a native speaker start talking about it, and basically start talking, and you start to realize, oh, there are things that the rules are X but they'll cheat. They'll cut the corners. They'll basically. Do you have some of those that you've mentally come up with, basically, where people are like, basically, this is the rule as you pronounce it this way, or these things follow this way, but native speakers will slur that together. They'll cut that
Oh yeah.
out. They'll start to take that
There's even a
apart.
little thing in the pronunciation guide where it says for some reason this word is pronounced schley. Nobody knows why, it just is. Um, so yeah, I think that different regions would have different accents, especially with people that live as long as elves. And the most important thing is, it doesn't have to be Elvish. I mean, if you want to say this is Gnomish, knock yourself out. go put on your tinker's apron and live it up. But in my head, this is what I designed it to be. So don't be locked in. You can't live by my rules, man. I'm not your mom. So yes, it's in my head. There are elves that the more rustic you are, probably the heavier sounds come out. And then you would get the more rolling R's somewhere else, like Feromil. And then there's a problem of, well, if you're out there right now and you're thinking, well, but I named my guy Parkadaran, and it means strength of the mountain. Well, okay, that's fine. You don't have to change it to what I said. That's in the naming tongue. The language before the language, the old one, like Latin is to us. So, there's even that in there to grandfather in whatever words you made up. I think that makes everybody a lot happier, because you might have some words and it's in the old tongue. Your stuff just got 1,000% more mysterious. That's what my book will do for you. It makes your stuff even cooler.
The names are always that part of the language, which are always the most fascinating, because it's going to just talk about all those rules and things like that. And 99% of those rules seem to get thrown out the windows when you're looking at a name, because the names are just, what did your parents think sounded cool? And maybe it was based on something from a previous language. Maybe it was made something from something they invented, or maybe it is just they like the way it was spelled, but they put their own pronunciation twist on it. So basically, and
that's how I wound up with a Norwegian first name and a Polish last name. So.
Yep, exactly, 100%. And it's like, I've been studying basically doing all sorts of fun things and fun times. I studied Japanese for a little bit. I've been doing that, and names are the one thing that they always talk about. Are like, okay, so all those rules you have and things like that, they can kind of go out the window, because you may write them one way, but it's up to whoever's doing the naming to actually decide how it's pronounced and what it means in this particular case, and basically which way it goes. And you're talking earlier about naming places and things like that, and kind of to use this to segue into the RPG stuff, you could use this as a great way of maybe hinting at what something is, but without outright saying it. You don't have to say that this is the lair of ancient evil and use that one for one. But if you basically you sprinkle in parts of that, they're like, hey, wait, does that have the word for evil in it? Basically, wait, hang on. Basically, it's like, okay, we're seeing something in there. Basically, is that what this word came from? And so
the third place you've been where it's got the word Vod in it, you're like, does Vod mean town? So, yes, that's enough.
Putting things together basically could be another great part of this in terms of
it's a puzzle in and of itself.
So I guess that's basically kind of the next thing, basically talking about how you see languages being used at the table, because that's always one of the more interesting basically things about languages. When you open up the book, you create a character, 90% of the time it's basically fantasy, sci-fi, but basically outside of basically maybe a modern game. Modern is probably the only exception where you just kind of assume everyone is speaking whatever language you speak at the table. But everything there's an entry for common or galactic basic, or basically we're playing Star Trek and everybody's just got translators, and so everyone can speak. basically it's kind of, and everything just kind of gets translated down, and occasionally you'll throw something in there. And so it's basically, even if you're not necessarily using the full dictionary, basically, how would you suggest people start to incorporate languages in basically using a book like this to start throwing in, to piecing in words and things like that to be able to add flavor and character to their game?
Well, I think the main thing that you could start with is world building, place names. I always use the example of Shoetown, which was actually a place that my party wound up in. I just looked at the DM like, really? Okay, fine. We're in Shoetown. So, and that seemed to me like such a crashing failure of the suspension of disbelief. I was actually kind of offended. But yeah, I mean, just looking at, I just went to a random page. Dunmarsar. Okay. Well, welcome to Dunmarsar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does that mean? I don't know. Well, you look out the window and there are endless fields of wheat. Are we in West Wheat Town? Yes, we are. But, it just gives it a little added flavor. And as the people figure it out, it's like a long-running puzzle. There's a certain pleasure. It's like, wait. So, Vestahar? Is that whiskey? Yes!
Great.
So, what if you've got a dwarf and you want to give him a cool name? You want to name him Anvil. Well, okay, everybody's got a dwarf named Anvil, but, if you got a dwarf named, let's zoom on up. Let's get my book out.
Basically, much easier to flip through and basically randomly access books.
Toadlot. There you go. There you go. You got a dwarf named Toadlot. And
Nice.
Bingo. It's much cooler than calling him Anvil. But you are calling him Anvil, but nobody knows it. And then you can make this big dramatic reveal.
And basically, there's all sorts of reasons and backstory for basically, is that the Dwarvish, or basically maybe it is, maybe they are using the Elvish name, and why would this dwarf's parents use the Elvish name? Oh, well, there's a whole reason why they would use it, as opposed to everyone just uses English names or common names and things like that.
Maybe his family, his parents were friends with an elf who saved their lives or something, and to honor him they gave him an elvish name. There's just little bits like that can add to so much. What's your weapon? This is Van Dastroth. It's like the Northern Fury. Oh, well, sweet. That just got even cooler. Now everybody's going to fight over, and it's just a +1 longsword with cold enchant on it. But it's got a name now.
Yeah, that's always one of the things you kind of talk about whenever you're GMing something, is you want your players to basically start getting involved and getting attached and getting basically associated and kind of see basically either things that they're bringing to the table, or basically things that they're taking out of other things and they're bringing. And you basically, a language is a great way of putting that kind of, I won't say basically kind of a filter between what is happening, but what you're saying, and basically what's actually happening at the table, in order to give you that feeling of it. Oh, it's something different. It's something interesting. It's not just basically sword of fire. It's the Elvish word for fire sword. And when you're saying that, why you're saying it, why it's named that, but it has a name now, and that basically giving things names has basically tremendous amount of basically mental power and to give you connections to things. Basically, naming NPCs can be so important in terms of basically, if you just have a random goblin, that's a random goblin. But if you give them basically, oh, that's Scribshank, and he's like, oh, okay, basically now your players are someone writes that down, someone remembers that.
And it changes from a stat stick into your sword. It takes it out of math and into reality. And like Scribshank, I like him. I'm going to remember that forever now. Thank you.
Exactly. It's just
in my head now.
Yeah, it's just a small little thing that sticks in there, and basically, I have my salary mandated plug I have to give. Of course, this is part of the reason why we do things like Lore Link and things like that. Is the fact that basically being able to write things down and record them and being able to find them is basically, it basically gives your players a lot, giving your players continuity in the world. Not only does it give you the ability to, it basically makes your life a little bit easier. You're not like, what was the name of that goblin again? Because your players will know it, or maybe not know it, or they'll disagree. And basically, it basically gives you that sense of continuity. It also lets your players change the world. Basically, something that's basically they can understand it. They can start solving it. They start to basically with your hit the mic. Basically with your language, things like that. That gives them something they can work towards, something they can start figuring out and start parsing. Then they can start adding to it. They're starting to name things themselves. They're starting to figure out what names are. You're basically they're naming things basically, and they can be involved in basically if a town suddenly they found a town, or a town gets founded because of things they've done, and it gets a name, and they're like, wait, we understand why that town got that name, and that's because we did X or Y, and we had that effect in the world. And that basically a lot of that starts from basically just having resources like this, basically recording them, taking notes and writing them down, and enabling your players to make changes, to figure things out, to not just feel like they're in a set of rules which are randomly kind of shifting around them, but they're actually in a living, breathing world, which is why things like this are great. Like I saw a video go by, basically just randomly go by, where a player randomly forgot to change their language to basically write down that they spoke common. And they're like, well, we'll just add it in. He's like, no, wait, we'll do that. Basically this one character could understand common but couldn't speak it. And so basically adding that extra challenge, adding that extra variety in of, oh, okay, now we have to work a little bit harder. Basically the players have to engage more with the story, and it gives that character a unique twist. It gives them something like, oh, okay, basically we have to work with them. We have to figure out what they're saying or not saying, or basically eventually we'll figure out what that means, and we'll write it down and we'll get involved. And that's the great part about having a language like this. And as you were saying, this doesn't have to be Elvish. You've done a lot of great work here to provide a language that basically, if you decide that this is the language of the Eldar, to pull out Warhammer 40k, basically your space, basically you have a spacefaring race that uses this language, and now your universal translator doesn't work, and you're having to, as a Star Trek crew, figure out how to communicate with them. Figure out things like that. It gives you a lot of interesting things to play with. Do you have any interesting stories of where this is basically your player group has used your language and things like that in your games?
Yeah, I was really tickled. They seized on it instantly. They're like, this is great.
Mm-hmm,
So there was
mm-hmm.
a lot of positive reinforcement on that. I would come check my email, and the guy playing, he was an elf paladin of Hyrunius, and the entire post, like 8 paragraphs, including his descriptions of like rolling dice, he just wrote the whole thing in Elvish, and it was just the coolest thing ever. Everybody's like, why did you do that, Rich? And I'm like, wait, let me get my book. This is amazing.
Ha!
He was really one of the people who just played because his friends were playing. He's a police officer, not overly imaginative, but it really fired him up. And he's like, oh, this is great. This is cool. And I mean, let's strip it down to the basics. It's a good tool for DMs too. And I'm going to say one sentence, and everybody's going to go, oh yeah, speak, friend, and enter. The most famous puzzle in fantasy history. So, hey, the Elvish word for friend. There you go. So it stopped Gandalf. So, but yeah, and there was a time my cleric got 2 level drains by a vampire, and it's like, oh, this is not good. So it's like, well, you're gonna do your saving throws in the morning. Rest up. So like, well, okay. My cleric was also musically inclined, because I am. We all have our author inserts. So, I'm like, well, what would a cleric do besides pray? Like, oh, please God, give me my levels back. So I wrote a hymn. I wrote some music and I wrote lyrics in Elvish and I sent it to the DM and I said, I'm trying to please St. Cuthbert. Like this is my offering. I got a big old bonus on my rolls, and my levels were restored. So you can use it like that. It's called, because he's a god of justice. It's called Stas Asmanti Entath, your golden scales. So you can find it on YouTube. That's a good piece of music too.
Nice.
Let me get you a link so everybody can listen and ignore what I'm
please
talking
do.
about. Hold on.
Drop that into the chat.
1 second.
It's always great, basically, and I will basically say this as a GM. Encourage your players to do this. Give them rewards. Give them bonuses for doing these things. Let them basically, and even if it's small things, like always reward the behavior you want to see. Basically, even if it's just a little bit of it, basically you're just getting the edges of it. They're like, oh, I came up with this. I came up with this name. I came up with this little bit of backstory. I came up with this little bit of art or song or something like that that I associate with the character. Remember that and remember it and reward it, basically, whether by an actual like in-game reward of like, hey, you get some gold, you get some bonuses, things like that, or even just figuring out ways to work it in, to revisit it later, to be able to basically make them go, oh, that was something I did. Again, it comes back to the idea of I'm involved in this world and I'm able to change it. And I'm able to basically make parts of it.
Yeah, it's reciprocation. The DM works hard, the players contribute back. And that's what it should be, because otherwise you're just reading numbers off a page, and that's not fun.
Basically, that's the point of this activity is, basically, it is a role-playing game. All of you have sat down because you want to jointly tell a story. It's a creative endeavor for all of you. It's not just on your part. I mean, if you really want to boil it down to you're just playing basically just playing numbers. Basically, some people want to do that. That's great. That's how some people want to play the game. And basically, a lot of times that ends up as a little bit more of a board game. And, basically, if that's what your group's going for, go for it. And that's what your group's comfortable with. But you'll probably find that all of you have picked Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Star Trek Adventures or any of these numerous games because you wanted to add something a little bit extra in. You wanted to add something a little bit more fun. You as a GM wanted to tell some interesting stories, to put your own twist on things, whether it's making it the voices for characters or describing stuff or giving big epic scenes for things, or as a player you decided you want to come up with these cool backstories for your characters. You've decided you wanted to build something creative here, and so basically push for it, and give them the tools, like something like this dictionary is a great way of being able to either handing it to your players and being like, hey, here's what we're going to agree to. Here's a language you guys can use in the game, and we'll be pulling from it and things like that. And we can all go back and forth, and we can use it even if it's just we give things cool names, like you're talking about. We won't end up with Shoetown. Even if that's what the word means, is Shoetown, it sounds so much cooler. That's why a lot of places around, a lot of countries, a lot of cities and countries are named that in reality because they start with.
There's some really lame city names.
Yeah, when you break it down, you're like, oh wait, that just means that. Oh yeah, like last names like Baker as a last name. When you stop and think, you're like, oh right, that's just because they're somewhere in their past, some of their family were bakers, and that they got that name when they came around to you have to have a last name. What do? I bake. Cool, you're baker now. All right, whatever. But it's great to be able to basically do that. One thing I would say is you talked about basically using this as no mission, things like that. If someone wanted to use this as a jumping off point for their own language, like they wanted to make it, basically wanted to put their own twist on it or something like that, what would you recommend? What advice would you give to someone either using this as a jumping off point or building their own from scratch or something like that? What advice would you give?
I would say set out your rules first. What is it you want to accomplish? Like there are words that aren't in here. I mean, I don't need a word for a building permit. At least not yet. There might come a day when I need a word for a building permit. So get your focus. Start almost like a reverse spiral. start with a small knot of words that you have to have, and don't forget dragon. And each word leads out from there. Okay, so, okay, treasure. Okay, great, treasure. Well, now you need treasure chest. So follow those threads, because that's what's going to fill in the gaps. Because you'll say, I can't possibly think of another word. Well, okay, well, we have travel, traveler, traveled. What do travelers need? Travelers need luggage. Travelers need supplies. Well, I don't have boat. I don't have shipping. So take those strands and follow them to the logical end. Build up a list of words, and you're not going to use all of them. There are still words that I haven't translated back yet, but they're there, and they help you get to where they're their own map. It's almost like a fractal. So, like right now, I'm looking at my desk. Vitamins. I got a bottle of vitamins here. Okay, well, what are vitamins? Okay, we don't necessarily need vitamins. Your elves probably don't know about vitamins. But if they did, they would need a word. So then we go from healthy. Then you think tablet. Well, they wouldn't have tablets, but they would have a writing tablet. Damn, I don't have tablet. So, and every day you can think of 10 different things you want. But the main things are find the verbs, find the adjectives, the adverbs, the nouns. Just like Grammar Rock, start from there and you can go anywhere. If you want it to be all irregular, that's great. If you want it to be short, hard words, if you're doing Orcish, maybe you don't want L's because they sound elfy. You can't have elf without an L. So, okay, so you take that out and you put in X. That's a word I don't have, like Broxgaga. Okay, well, there you go. So you've already made a step. You've eliminated a letter, you added a letter, and you've made it your own. So always think about the speaker, the sound you're going for. I went for kind of a neutral. It's not quite Latinish. I would say it's somewhere between Latin and French. But that's okay because I speak a little French. Living in Detroit, you have to understand a little bit. You're so close to Canada.
Yep.
And more times than I can count, I'll buy something at the store, bring it home. Okay, I'm going to build my new TV. Oh, the instructions are in French. Oh, well. I learned most of my French from instruction manuals that were sent by mistake. So, yeah, it's discipline. Make sure you work on it every day. Make sure you pay attention to details. Read out the K's. Read out the if you've got too many E's. Like, okay, well, I decided I didn't like the double E. Like, yeah, that looks too Englishy. So I took all that out and I made them all IE. Same sound, looks better. So, yeah, you have to, in a written thing, because for the most part, we're going to be reading and writing this, not speaking it. There are going to be some instances. Maybe I write a song. Maybe I'll do my Silent Night in Elvish and upload it somewhere for fun. But it has to have a uniformity of look, because just as an experiment, I asked my friends, I said, okay, I just want to see if a theory's right. Make up 10 words for me. I went to my mom and my brother and said, make up 10 words for me. And they gave me perfectly good words, and none of them looked like mine. None of them looked elfy to me. So, because they came about it through their own experience. And I feel bad that I told them, no, I'm not using any of them. Any of yours. Any of them. Any of them. It made me sound like a real creep. But in the long run, it was an interesting experiment. And I think it was like proof, what do they call it? Proof of concept. That I made this up and it's mine, and that makes me feel good. So if you want to try it for yourself, go right ahead. I think there's a lot of room for this in the world, and why not? People make up conlangs all the time. People made Klingon. Klingon wasn't a real thing.
Yeah.
Dothraki, they made that up. Tolkien himself made up Elvish.
Yep.
And he's got more rules than I could ever have. He knew what he was talking about. He was educated in that. I'm just me, a musician who one day decided that D&D could be a little better if I had a book full of Mrs. Dash. That's what this is. It's spice for your game.
Yeah.
It can make it better. It can make things more interesting. There's a scary inscription on the wall. What does it say? I don't know. It says Sirthatar. which is one of the words that I've memorized. It's a trap. So if you see that on a wall, you better get your sword out. You won't know the first time, but by God, you're going to remember it the second time you see it.
Yep. Yep.
And there, your world grew, your character learned something, you learned something, and the game got better. So that would be my advice, and why you should buy this book. Buy this book.
Yes.
Buy a couple, as my cleric advises on the back cover. She actually advises you to buy 2 copies because, unfortunately, I'm a little poor. So he's very kind that way.
Yeah, Steph, basically, I definitely recommend basically pick up the book. Basically, it's a great thing to have as a resource of just something else you can throw in, and being able to basically, you basically as a GM, basically you have a bunch of responsibilities and things like that. When you get it, you can get a resource like this where you're like, oh hey, I think it'd be interesting if I could sprinkle this in or something like that. You're like, oh, do I want to go through all of the work? Basically, like creating the language, obviously, as you were talking about, took years to come up with. And so having a resource like this can save you that time, or give you basically the inspiration you need to start off on your own. Being able to be like, oh, okay, I see what she's done here, and that's great. I want to use this to start use this for one game. Maybe I'll put my own for the next one, or do something else. Or it's great to have as a resource to be able to take a look at.
Maybe you're a competitive jerk like mine. You read it and say, I could do better. Well, maybe you can.
There you go. Yeah.
And if you do better, then that'll make me make mine better.
We're all here to make everybody better. It's great. That's the best part about this. We all basically standing on the shoulders of giants, as they say. So in basically anything else, before we'll probably wrap it up here. Is there anything else you want to talk about? You want to mention that I haven't covered yet? Any phrases or stuff in here that you're like, oh, I'm really proud? I did notice that, of course, you do have a section on Elvish swears, because of course you do, because anybody who's looking up a language is going to go straight for that section the first time.
Yeah, they're going to go to the dirty words section. Insults and swearing, yes.
Yep.
I mean, that's where that was the whole the whole basis of it. I mean, I had to have it in there.
Yep.
So I wasn't going to put it in, and it's like the first thing everybody's going to say is, "Oh, it's right there." Kabasta, baby. Look at that! I just swore on Twitch, and nobody knows that.
My gosh! Oh no, there goes our rating. It's fine. It's fine.
That's right. Hey, it's not swearing if nobody knows.
It all works.
And then if they had swearing, somebody's like, well, everybody's got bards, they're having sex with everything. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's get into the adult terms.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's one that I went through. I'm like, what would an elf call somebody to be rude? Limp-eared. There we go.
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
Loser. Damn, they're getting mean now. It's personal.
That's a great thing.
Like,
basically, one of those great.
We're gonna fight now.
The ship has sailed. Yep, it's fine. That's great, and that's always a great thing. Basically, in terms of that's another interesting thing that adds culture to your world. What word? I mean, like you think about all of the basically all the different TV shows or things like that, and a lot of those times basically you'll end up with basically the actual swears that go across. Everyone's like, okay, but basically you say frack, and people have an immediate like, oh, we know exactly where that came from.
Yeah, I know what you said, man.
Exactly. It's one of those. It's word like cracks and shards, storms. Basically when you're
shards. Rock.
Yeah. Basically from all of all those kinds of those books, those stand out because they're part of the culture, they're part of the world, and that's right. What makes them much more interesting than just an actual swear. And so basically again, it adds to your world building. It gives people something else to hook into, something else that they're going to remember past
something
the game.
Tell rude innkeepers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It all comes to, sometimes you just have to tell off an innkeeper.
Yeah, this is the thing. So yeah, if if you're going to buy it for somebody a little younger, you might want to rip out page. The special page 80th edition.
You could just
yeah, well,
you could staple that section together like a copy of a was it a skateboarding book I had as a child, basically a young kid that I got out of a library, something like that, and someone had decided that, because I'd gotten it secondhand, but apparently someone had decided, for whoever the first owner of it was, that the illustrated tricks in the center were too dangerous, that they didn't want whatever child they gave it to attempt those tricks, because they were the dangerous ones. So they stapled that section together so that the kid couldn't see that section. And it always fascinated me. I'm like, what secrets lie within this section? And you open it up and it's like, oh, it's just skateboarding tricks. Oh, okay.
That's the next hook in a D&D game. Like, 2 pages of this manuscript have been glued together. And then everybody's like trying to get, oh, no, it's ripping. It's a picture of some lady's boobs.
Dang it. It's just somebody censoring the book for their kid. That's awesome.
Too spicy. That guy quit the next day.
Done.
And ran off to Shoetown.
He wanted a normal, boring life, so he moved to Shoetown.
That's right. He had the freedom to draw boobies and books whenever he wanted. Drew a mustache on Leviatar. Oh, man.
Oh, gosh. Get that man out of here. I want that man banned from this temple. All right.
This is really cool. I'm so glad I had the chance to talk to you.
Oh yeah, basically, thanks so much for being willing to come on here and sharing basically your creativity, which is basically it's what we're looking for here. Basically, LoreLink is all about helping GMs get the tools that they need to play, basically make their games more interesting, more enjoyable for both the players and for themselves. Being able to basically sit down on a table and be able to play a game takes a lot of work. It isn't basically by no means, even if you're running a pre-made adventure, things like that, there's always basically little things you could add in, like you talked about earlier, just using this as just a little bit of spice that you could add to, but even if you pick up just a normal pre-made adventure, you add a little bit of this language in here, it could add basically makes it a little bit different, makes your game a little bit more unique. And basically it's going to encourage your players to give you back the same in kind, and being able to keep building on that, and being able to keep building and creating this world that you all have take part in and you play in, and you can then hand off to the next GM and they build their own thing. And that's what we like to talk about, like to see basically whether it's interesting new games, interesting new resources, things like that, because it's all part of the role-playing experience. And that's the reason why we created LoreLink in the first place, is to make GMs be able to allow GMs to be able to do these things without stressing themselves out, because they are basically a lot. Sometimes people they're the hardest working people at the table, things like that. Players work hard too, but basically they're the ones who so much more rest on them having fun, and it's harder sometimes to tell that, just in terms of players show up, they have fun, they're having an off day, they go home. GMs always feel a little bit more burdened. They're a little bit more like, oh, I have to make sure everybody has fun. And we want to make sure that the GMs can take as much stress off as they can so that they can enjoy it, because everybody at the table should be enjoying it, the players and the GM. And so that's why
everybody forgets that. And I think that's terrible. Because, you're playing as a player, but they're participating in the game as much as anybody. And sometimes we forget that the GM's supposed to be having a good time too.
Yep.
So if I can make it a little easier by, taking 10 minutes off their day by not having to think of names for all their cities, this is, Blue Town, Red River, White Mountain. There you go. It sounds a lot better, and they can go, have breakfast or whatever.
Yep.
So it's a time-saving device, and I hope people find it useful, because I had a lot of fun making it.
Awesome. So basically, we'll go ahead and kind of wrap this up. So obviously, basically, thank you so much for being on here. Thank you for basically for bringing this and sharing this with our audience. And again, basically, the link has been in the chat. Basically, it'll be in the if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description of the video as well. So basically, obviously, if you want to support her, and basically you want to add this spice to your game, go check those out. Basically, go ahead and basically there's the link right there. Thanks, Tony. Basically, check those out. And obviously, if you're interested in Lorelink, basically, which I've been talking about on and off here, obviously, I am obligated to. Oh, even our Blue Sky account, awesome. Basically, I'm obligated to talk about here because Lorelink is the channel. The reason why we have this channel is because basically we have a tool out there. We call it Lorelink. It is a tool to help you start creating worlds and start being able to write things down and keep track of all those cool names and places and things like that and organize them in a way that makes sense and that you can get to easily without having to go, wait, what did I name that goblin? Where did I put that town? Where was this and connected to this? And being able to just access it a little bit faster, basically taking just that little bit of stress off of you. If you're interested in trying that out, we have the Get Started link right there in the chat. That comes with 2 free campaigns that you can basically create your first 2 campaigns, and you can get access to a whole slew of features. Basically, some of the sharing and the templates are at paid tiers, but a lot of the other stuff are there, and your campaigns are yours for free forever. It's not a limited trial or anything like that. So please go check that out. And it's especially starting as of yesterday, we were basically excited to announce that we just basically actually successfully deployed and got out there our newest update, which added a whole bunch of new features and functionalities to even the free tier, basically giving the ability to link things everywhere, have named relationships and all that cool stuff. So go check that out. Basically, that is available right there in that chat. If you're interested in finding more cool creators like these, basically go ahead and follow us here on Twitch. That's free, and basically it'll give you a quick notification if we're playing more interesting games and planning things out in Lorelink. Basically in the spooky month, I think we're planning on doing the basically monster of the week. And then I'll be planning that out next week, and then we'll be playing that around Halloween. And we will also be doing some basically other creators. I think we have Bite the Hand is another one that's coming up, which is a cool cyberpunk game. We'll be taking a look at that in a couple of weeks. So basically, again, follow us here if you want to be able to basically get notifications. Obviously, if you really like what we've done here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's always appreciated, never necessary. We don't do subscriber-only things. But if you have like Amazon Prime and you want to use that Amazon Twitch gaming thing, basically fixes the YouTube lab. Okay, thank you. And basically you can take money from Jeff Bezos and put it into our pockets, which we promise, unlike Jeff Bezos, we won't use that money on yachts, or at least not actual yachts. We might use it on a fictional yacht. But that's about the only way we'd actually ever use that. But Jeff Bezos can't make that promise, but we can. Of course, if you're watching this over on YouTube, feel free to basically like, subscribe, and comment in there how you use languages in your games. And basically it'll be great to start a conversation on that. So thank you again so much for watching and listening, and thank you so much for being here, Kristen. And
Thank you for having me.
We'll go ahead and catch you all later. Good
Thank you
night.
so much. Have a great night.